Hello and welcome. As the United States considers expanding its travel ban to 36 additional countries, Nigeria has issued a strong warning. The nation says the U.S. could face retaliation and risks losing access to strategic minerals found across West Africa. This warning comes amid reports that the Trump administration is preparing to broaden its controversial travel restrictions. Earlier this month, President Donald Trump announced new restrictions on nationals from several countries. 12 countries are now facing a total ban, 7 of them in Africa: Chad, the Republic of Congo, Equatorial Guinea, Eritrea, Libya, Somalia, and Sudan. An additional 7 countries face partial restrictions, including 3 more African nations: Burundi, Sierra Leone, and Togo. But this may just be the beginning. A classified U.S. State Department memo has reportedly warned that 36 more countries may be added to the list, with at least 25 of them from Africa. Countries mentioned include Nigeria, Ethiopia, Ghana, Egypt, Angola, Cameroon, Djibouti, Malawi, Mauritania, Senegal, Uganda, and Zimbabwe. If the plan moves forward, it could impact nearly 1.5 billion people. Nigeria is at the center of this list. It's Africa's most populous nation. Foreign Minister Yusuf Tugar has condemned the proposed move, warning that it could disrupt regional trade, particularly in energy and critical minerals. He called the policy unfortunate, emphasizing that West Africa is a region of opportunity and a strategic alternative to far-flung energy sources. The Trump administration has made securing access to rare earth minerals like lithium, cobalt, and nickel a priority to reduce U.S. dependence on China and other unstable suppliers. These minerals are vital to everything from electronics to defense technologies. Africa holds some of the largest untapped reserves of these materials. The U.S. has been actively pursuing partnerships across Africa's mining sector, a domain currently dominated by China. Nigeria is a major focus for Washington's strategic plans, with efforts underway to collaborate on geological mapping, exploration, and enhancing local value in the mining industry. Beyond Nigeria, the U.S. is also targeting mineral-rich nations like the Democratic Republic of Congo. Washington is working on a Minerals for Peace deal and mediating between the DRC and Rwanda to help end conflict in the mineral-rich Eastern Congo. The U.S. is also backing the Libido Corridor project, a rail network linking mining regions in the DRC and Zambia to Angola's port, boosting copper and cobalt exports. Yet, there's a catch. DRC, Zambia, and Angola are all on the U.S. travel ban watch list. If restrictions are imposed, these vital trade initiatives could collapse. Nigeria has made its stance clear and may not stand alone. Other African nations may also issue warnings. A sweeping U.S. travel ban could jeopardize access to Africa's vast mineral wealth. The economic and diplomatic consequences could be far-reaching if Nigeria follows through on its threat. Access to West Africa's critical minerals is crucial for U.S. interests. Trump's America First strategy relies on favorable deals with countries around the world, but China has a stronghold in Africa, and the U.S. is unlikely to easily replace it. While the Trump administration defends the new policy as a visa review rather than a ban, skepticism remains. Critics say Trump's strategy is often to threaten and then bargain, a tactic aimed at forcing countries back to the negotiating table. Still, the long-term viability of such tactics is questionable given the competitive race with China for influence and resources. If the travel ban expansion goes ahead, U.S.-Africa relations, especially with ECOWAS countries, may suffer. Many of these nations align policies regionally, so a U.S. move against one could provoke a wider pushback. But can African nations afford a trade dispute with the U.S.? While major powers like China and India can resist American pressure, smaller nations often cannot. Yet the global reliance on Africa's minerals gives the continent leverage. The real issue is unity. If African nations speak with one voice, they could present a formidable front. Acting together, they could exert collective pressure and shift negotiations in their favor. So what are Nigeria's options under global or regional trade rules? Diplomacy remains key. When travel bans first hit, Somalia announced it would engage the U.S. diplomatically. That may be the only path forward, but African nations should avoid dealing with the U.S. individually. That plays into Trump's strategy. Unity is Africa's strength. A coordinated diplomatic approach, backed by political will, could shift the narrative and challenge U.S. policy. Thank
And
you
then
for
they are
joining
ever
us.
conscious of the competition, which is a very huge competition with the Chinese that has been dominating the African continent for quite some time. It's not a given that the United States will be able to take over from the Chinese anytime now, because the Chinese have dug in deeply into the African continent. So it's a very big problem. I think it's a bit confusing. Sometimes you wonder whether some of these policy thrusts from the Trump administration are well thought out. Obviously, but you also have to realize that a lot of people have talked about the fact that Trump likes to make deals, and that is his usual his signature move. So he threatens, and then when he threatens a particular country, he wants them to conform and then come back to the negotiating table and all that. So I suspect that, yes, he has actually imposed some, people describe it as a travel ban. Though they came out about, less than 24 hours ago to say that it is not exactly a travel ban, but it is a review of the visa processes in those countries, because that will be
right.
That they want to be sure of the security implications of those. So I think it's going to be problematic for them. I'm not sure in the long run that they want to continue along this line. Because they are, like I said,
Right.
they're in competition with the Chinese and will not want to lose ground. So I think it's just part of the bluff he makes, and then
Yes.
hopefully those countries will come around to doing what the United States want. It's going to affect them economically, obviously.
Yes. Yes. And how might this travel ban, if implemented, the expansion impact US-Africa relations more broadly, particularly with ECOWAS member states that often align their policies regionally?
Yes, but it's going to be a bit of a problem because but I think a lot of people are beginning to get a bit fed up with with America's antics, and so you can see. I don't know how there will be a pushback. There might be a pushback, but I think what is important is how much of a big deal would that pushback be. Can the African countries themselves, especially West Africa, can they afford to have a trade war with the United States? America is a very, very powerful country. There's no doubt. Of course, there are few countries that might be able to call America's bluff. To some extent, China being one, India being another one, because these are very, very strong countries with strong economies. And so America tends to tread carefully when they are dealing with bigger countries. But for smaller countries, there is that tendency to want to ride roughshod over them. But we must not forget the fact that America is reliant and the world is reliant on the mineral resources, that come from the African continent. I think the major problem Africa has is that Africa is not able to come together and speak with one voice. Because if Africa is able to achieve that, then Africa can now put a leverage and pressure, with all the countries in Africa acting together as one. Then they will become a more formidable force.
Absolutely. Right. And what legal or political options does Nigeria and possibly ECOWAS have under international or regional trade agreements to impose retaliatory measures against the US?
Yeah, well, I think they just have to talk. It's as simple as that. And that is, they have to ratchet up the diplomacy. I think that is what is critical. When the travel ban was first imposed on the first few countries, Somalia said, well, that they are going to try to engage the Americans. And I think that is what the Americans, want. Engage the Americans, and the Americans will tell you, the Africans want, engage the Americans, and the Americans will tell you what they expect from you. But I think it will be a risk for individual African countries to get into individual or bilateral discussions with the United States. That's what America wants. That's what Trump wants. I think Africa should go in as a bloc. They are stronger, especially if they have the political will to act in consonance with their collective decision. Then at that level, I think it will be a diplomatic problem for the Americans.
Absolutely. Chike, thank you very much for being with us on